Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be with you tonight. As I was winding down this whole Enneagram series, I was thinking, something that isn't discussed nearly enough that is so common is highly sensitive personality types, otherwise known as HSP or sensory sensitivity. So, real quick, HSP was a kind of personality type that someone named Elaine Aron started studying in like 1991. It's an innate trait. New science is starting to show that the brains of individuals who are considered highly sensitive persons is actually different. It's not necessarily a new discovery, but it's been like widely misunderstood. So HSPs or sensitivity, sensory processing, it's not a disorder. You might have heard like sensory processing disorder. That's not what we're talking about. HSP, you actually take in information as if the volume is turned up. So it's almost like someone has a megaphone, and that's how these individuals receive smell and taste and audible input or touch. And for most individuals I've worked with, there are certain sensory inputs that are more kind of dysregulating than others. But this is a personality type, and it is so unsettling to me that it's not more widely understood, because I introduce it to so many clients and people I work with and say, do you think that this could be something that describes how you're wired? And all of a sudden it normalizes kind of how they experience the world, which it turns out they had all of these shame narratives around, like, oh, I feel like I'm a wimp, or I'm too sensitive or too emotional. And it turns out like they're actually wired that way for a reason, right? There's intentionality in how we are created. And so tonight I'm inviting a friend named Emma on, and she is going to share with us what it's been like for her as a quarantined HSP. And I'm going to ask her to clarify, but I think she's a type 9 as well. So yesterday we heard from my friend Stephanie. Tonight we'll be hearing from my friend Emma, and we'll be talking about kind of what her experience has been like, both as a 9, but then also as an HSP. So let's invite her on real quick.
Hi.
Hey,
How
how
are
are
you?
you?
Good.
I'm good too. I rushed, got the kids down. Ryan's doing a lot of it, but I was like, it was somewhat rushed. And so hopefully everyone's okay up there. But,
Oh,
it's,
you're a superhero for getting it down in that time.
oh, it's just like ready, set, go.
Yeah.
You got to go to bed,
Yeah.
which is not, they're not sleeping, but, they're in their rooms.
Mhm.
So they are
Awesome.
contained,
Quarantine.
quarantined, if you will. Yes. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
My
Remind me,
pleasure.
are you a type 9?
So slightly more. I kind of am a self-diagnosed self-9. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Myers-Briggs, but I'm an INFJ, and INFJs typically score almost even between the types on the Enneagram. So the one I'm the lowest on is an 8, and all of them are almost even, except the 9 is like one tally mark more.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, so last night we were focused on the Enneagram 9, and while that is a helpful kind of like lens through which to view how we're all experiencing quarantine, it's also helpful to kind of talk through this personality type that I just
Mm-hmm.
explained, which is the HS.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so widely misunderstood, or actually just like not even talked about, which
Mm-hmm.
is so sad, because I found so many people walk around with these different like shame narratives
Yeah.
in their head, or thinking that they're crazy when actually
Yeah.
they're just, their brains are actually different because they are
Mm-hmm.
wired as a highly sensitive. They take in sensory input with extreme sensitivity, which is
Mm-hmm.
actually a gift. And some research says it's like contributes to being a better survivor. So
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot going for us in that. I'm an HSP. I know you're an HSP. So maybe my first question for you would be, how did you discover that you were an HSP?
As soon as like you're in that late teenager years of being like, who am I? I started doing like a lot of research just on general things, and I came across, I think it was an HSP like support group online, and they were describing like what being an HSP is. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. And I'm the only one in my family other than my son who's that way. So I definitely had that shame narrative, and just feeling understood and starting to network with people who are also HSP was really, really helpful for me to just understand myself more and realize I'm not too emotional. There's nothing wrong with me. I am actually like a highly empathetic, sensitive, caring person, and that's what matters. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. Awesome. So you were fortunate in a way to discover this as a teenager.
Yeah.
How has that information benefited you in motherhood? Like,
I feel like it has made me a much more responsive parent. So I was grown in like an authoritative sense, and or I'm sorry, authoritarian. And I wanted to approach parenting a little bit differently. So I feel like it's made me be in tune to my child more, notice the ramp up of emotions more, rather than being behavior and action oriented. It's helped me to get in tune with how he is feeling, how to respond, identifying emotions, aiding him in transitions, just all of those things. It has been immensely helpful in just connecting us and keeping us connected in a healthy way.
awesome. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's switch on the quarantine kind of
Mm-hmm.
aspect of this. What has it been like for you as a quarantined HSP? What's been the hardest part for you?
So I'm a quality time love language. And the hardest thing has been missing time, like physical presence with my loved ones. Um, Virtual visits are just not the same. They're just not. I need to see, I need to look into someone's eyes. I need to see their body language. I feel like maybe you can really, as HSP, body language speaks louder than words. And so I miss that. I just miss the connection, the deep connection between loved ones.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I didn't ask you, I've been asking everyone, like your quarantine situation. I know you're very close with your parents. Are
Yes.
they cohabitating with you or are you
Yes. So we
okay,
live
great.
multi-generationally, and
Oh,
my grandma lives 7 houses down from us. So
really?
yeah,
Holy cow.
yeah.
Okay, are you around your grandma during this time or have you
No, that's
maintained?
really hard. Where we
Yes.
actually tested COVID positive
Okay.
about a month and a half ago. So we have been completely isolating from her just to keep her safe since she's in her late 70s.
Gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So for you as an HSP, what has been the silver lining? What have you been able to kind of soak up during this time?
So I've been taking a break from work because of the quarantine, and I think just being able to spend more time processing subtle aspects of my life, and um, yeah, I feel like I've had a lot more time to process. I'm kind of rehabbing certain parts of my life. I've been dealing with some health issues. And so being able to really address them and dive into them, whereas I normally don't have the time to invest, has been incredible for me. And since I live multi-generationally with my parents, the extra quality time with them is awesome. Like
Yeah.
I am that personality type that most people are going stir crazy with their family in their house. And I'm like, yes, let it never end.
Yes. Yeah. No, I feel you. I've been telling Ryan the same thing. I'm like, hey, when I married you, I like critically thought through who would I want to be stuck on an island with.
Yes, important.
And now we're stuck and it works
Yeah,
out because I actually like thought through that. I wonder how much of that's this like sensory kind of sensitivity that I
yeah, yeah. And it's kind of
need
like when
to
you
improve.
find your people, like you don't want to
Mhm.
leave your people because there is something to that. Like your environment and it affects your sensory input, and people are such a large part of your environment that if you find
Absolutely.
someone who is just really complimentary to you, you're just like you're stuck with me.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been
Yeah.
through enough to like figure out who
Yes.
who those people are that
Yes.
when you find them, it's
Yes.
like,
Oh my
all right,
gosh.
We're going to stay together forever.
Yeah.
Totally feel that. Yep. So for you, I'm looking at my questions because I'm trying to remember everything. How are you like getting your needs met and taking care of yourself in the midst of this time?
So I use the term purposeful grounding. And I guess it's anything that is like a sensory input that helps you to feel calm or comfortable or safe. And so, like comfy clothes, not just comfy clothes that are like torn to shreds, but I mean, like comfy clothes that feel good sensory wise and make you feel confident. And getting yourself ready for the day. I've found that with the lack of structure, having a strong morning routine for myself, and just like eating good and healthy food and taking a quiet moment, waking up before the kid, if you need to be able to have that quiet time, has been so vital. And I actually wrote down answers too, so I wouldn't forget. um,
Same way.
and oh yes, and I have been breaking out all the self-care coping mechanisms like baths, aromatherapy, special lotions and face masks and spa stuff. And I mean, just
Yes.
all of the self-care coping things. I've been having to use a menagerie of them in order to feel like okay
Safe.
in all this change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a certain sense that is more profound for you? Like, are you more sensitive to audible or touch or smell, or is there a certain one that you're like heightened on and then the rest are kind of muted,
Yeah.
or are you about the same?
So it's hearing and touch, and light specifically. So not like all visual things, but light. And I would say the hardest thing that tends to come up every day is the sound, especially having a very vocal toddler.
Yeah.
Like some kids talk a lot, some kids move a lot. My kid does both. So I think the constant demand of attention and the sound and loud sounds is challenging for me. And so I have to take a lot of moments to pause and have alone time. And I make the most of naps. I make the most of when he goes to sleep, just trying to feel like I have a bubble a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. That makes sense. Okay, so what do you feel like God's building in you, or what are those edges of growth during this season as a
Mm-hmm.
quarantined HSP?
Um, well, I feel like it's a little personalized because I am dealing with health issues. God has really been highlighting your body being a temple and what that actually means and how that is applied day by day. And it's not just the physical aspect of nutrition and exercise. It's honoring oneself. It's taking your experience, honoring your feelings, honoring the experience that you have in the current moment and making the best of it, processing it, learning what you can and applying it to the next day and like, whatever that needs to be. And so that has been huge. And I think having so many people in my life high anxiety or struggling with depression right now, it has taken a huge toll on me as like a counselor personality, listening to people vent all the time. And so I think spending quiet time, I've been more intentional about my quiet time than I ever have before. And just letting all my feelings out in that space. And it's been amazing to see how God has shown up in companionship and highlighting parts of the word in ways I haven't quite experienced in that way before. And as like needing quality time and needing some like sensory downtime, the combination of those two things has been amazing.
Love that. So
Yeah.
sweet, so kind of him.
Yeah.
Um, so, oh man, this time has flown by. I have to
I
like
know.
run soon and speak to this large group of women. My life right now, I just feel like I live on a
Yeah.
trampoline.
Yeah.
But before we go, I want to know, is there any advice as an HSP that you would give other HSPs who are listening on how to do this quarantine well and take care of themselves?
Yeah. So first off, I think grounding yourself is super important, whether you do it once a day or I prefer to do it in any big transition that I'm having during the day, whether it's going to work, coming from work, putting your kid down for a nap or him waking up. Just take a moment to ground yourself, like practice deep breathing, so hum a song, sing a song to just change the sensory input that is coming into your circle. Just really helps, like the full cup metaphor or analogy. If you keep pouring water into the cup over the day, you spill over all of a sudden without really noticing the levels rising. So if by grounding yourself throughout the day, it helps you to keep those levels managed, and it increases your self-awareness so you don't become overwhelmed as, quickly. And I wrote down consciousness, intentionality, and let go. So just being self-aware, being intentional with yourself, your time, honoring your feelings, and coming up with practical coping solutions for them. And then identifying what's yours and what's not. Like a lot of HSPs are like human sponges and they just absorb the feelings of people around them.
Mm-hmm.
So just taking time to identify what's yours and what's not, and then letting that go.
100%. So good. So much wisdom. Emma, thank you.
Thank you. This has been great.
So fun. So brief. I wish we had like an hour.
I know.
We need to catch up more next time we're physically in the same space.
Absolutely.
So bless you. Thank you for joining me. Anyone who watches this, if you are an HSP and have questions, Emma is a wealth of information and wisdom. So shoot her a direct message. I'm sure she'd be happy to talk with you. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you, Ashley.
Enjoy
and congrats on your book.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye. Okay, everyone, thank you for joining in. I have to run. I'm going to go speak with a MOPS group. But it was so fun to chat and talk about HSP specifically. As an HSP, it's not talked about enough. And it was really sweet to hear from Emma. So thanks for joining in.